Hey guys, tonight we're starting with something quiet. That smell of old cardboard and forgotten paper. The kind of stillness that settles over a place once its owner has been gone too long. This is a story about memory. Someone else's, I think. And what happens when you follow a feeling you should have ignored. You probably won't make it out of this one either. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It started with an attic. My uncle died in April, the kind of quiet man who lived alone and didn't leave a digital trace behind. No social media, no online subscriptions, no weird email accounts, just an old farmhouse in the middle of what used to be forest, now eaten away by housing developments and roads that didn't exist when I was a kid. He left the house to me. No one argued. I think most of the family had quietly forgotten he was still alive. It was the attic I remembered most. How tall the ceilings were up there, how the wood creaked even when no one was moving, how it always smelled like something between pine and mildew. As a kid, I wasn't allowed up there. Now, as an adult, with the place legally mine, I figured I'd start by cleaning it out. The hatch was stiff, but opened with a reluctant sigh, like the house wasn't quite ready to see me again. I climbed up, flashlight in one hand, dust already in my throat. The air was warm and still, no draft, no insects buzzing, just the low groan of old beams stretching under time. Most of what I found up there was just junk. Stacks of yellowed newspapers, boxes of books with warped covers, a jar full of marbles that had cracked down the middle. One corner of the attic held an armchair, so moth-eaten it looked more like spider silk than fabric. And then there was the box. It was tucked behind a stack of National Geographic magazines from the 80s, barely visible, black shoebox sized, wrapped in what might have once been white paper, now stained and peeling. There was a label on the top, handwritten in faded marker, "Play this only once now. If this were a horror movie, this is where you'd shout at me to leave it alone." Classic red flag, right? But the thing is, I wasn't scared, not then, more curious than anything. The box wasn't locked, just closed with brittle tape that snapped off like a scab when I touched it. Inside a single VHS tape, unlabeled, except for a small sticker on the spine, where someone had written for him, in the same shaky handwriting. No other tapes, no player, just that. I turned the box over a few times, but nothing else was hidden in it. No note, no instructions, just that ominous warning, and a format no one really uses anymore. Of course I didn't have a VCR, why would I? But something about the weight of the tape felt deliberate, like a message left in code. I took it downstairs anyway, set it on the kitchen counter while I made coffee, half expecting it to melt through the surface, like some cursed object from a pulp novel. It didn't, just sat there, heavy and silent. But I couldn't stop looking at it. Here's where things start getting strange. I didn't find a VCR. I never found one in that house. I tore through the closets, drawers, even looked under furniture. No player, no cables, nothing. Just that one lonely tape. And yet, 3 nights later, around 2:45 a.m., I heard something upstairs. Not wet steps, more like a whirring. At first I thought maybe it was an old fan, or a dying battery in a smoke detector. But the sound had rhythm. It started soft, and then built into a low mechanical grind, like something spooling. I followed it up to the attic, and no joke, the sound stopped the second my hand touched the hatch. Silence. I climbed up anyway, heart thumping in that half-awake, half-dreaming way you get when it's too late to be awake, but too early to go back to sleep. The attic was darker than I remembered. My flashlight flickered once, just once, but stayed on. And there it was, not just the box, a VCR. It hadn't been there before, I'm sure of it. It was plugged into a small portable CRT television, one of those old ones with the curved glass and statusy speakers. The screen was blue, glowing faintly. The tape was already inside. I stared at the setup for maybe a full minute. You ever have that feeling where your body knows something's wrong, but your brain hasn't caught up yet? That's where I was, somewhere between fascinated and frozen. Then the tape began to play. No one pressed anything. I hadn't touched it. The screen flickered, static first, loud and sharp, like an untuned radio. I winced at the sound. It filled the attic like a scream swallowed in cotton. Then a hallway appeared, grainy, too dark, lit only by what looked like a flickering light bulb at the far end. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but I knew that hallway. I didn't know where from. It wasn't my uncle's house. It wasn't my apartment, but there was something deeply familiar about it, like something from a childhood nightmare I'd forgotten until now. The camera didn't move. It just sat there, the hallway shifting in and out of focus as the light bulb swayed, casting long moving shadows. Then, footsteps, off screen, echoing in a way that made no sense given the perspective. And under the static, under the hum of the VHS, I heard something else, something like whispering, very faint, too low to understand. I should have stopped it. I didn't. I sat down in that dusty attic, in front of a screen that shouldn't exist, watching a hallway I didn't recognize, but somehow remembered. And just before the screen cut to black, something moved, at the far end, just enough to blur the edges of its shape. A person, or something trying to be a person. The tape ended. The screen went blue again, and in that absolute silence, the attic felt different, like it was listening. I stood slowly, backed away from the screen. The VCR made a mechanical click, like it had finished a job it didn't want to do. I didn't take the tape back downstairs. I left it there, in the machine, and shut the hatch behind me. But that night, as I lay in bed, unable to sleep, I swore I could still hear the static from inside the walls. I didn't go back into the attic the next morning. I told myself it was because I was busy, needed to pick up groceries, change the locks, get the utilities properly set up in my name. But the truth was simpler. I didn't want to be alone with whatever was up there. Not yet. I wanted to let the weirdness cool off, like maybe ignoring it would make it dissolve. But even in the daylight, something felt off about the house. The walls seemed closer. It's a weird thing to say, I know, but it was like the rooms had shrunk a little while I slept. I'd walk through the hallway and bump my shoulder on a door frame I could have sworn was wider the day before. The kitchen felt dimmer too, even though the curtains were open. I chalked it up to stress, grief, maybe. My uncle had passed less than 2 weeks ago, and I was sleeping in the same room he died in. That would mess with anyone, right? Still, the hum started that second night. I didn't notice it at first, just a faint low vibration in the background, like a refrigerator cycling or a distant truck idling. But it didn't go away. Paused the TV and still hear it. Unplugged the fridge, even shut off the circuit breakers for a minute, just to test my theory. The hum kept going. Around 3:17 a.m. on the dot, the lights flickered, just once, long enough for the digital clock on my nightstand to reset to 12 o'clock and blink like a heartbeat. I don't sleep well at the best of times, but now I couldn't even pretend. The attic felt like it was directly above my bed, even though the floor plan said otherwise. I lay there for hours, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the sound of the tape, the static. It never came, but the hum did. By the third night, I'd convinced myself it was some leftover wiring issue. The house was old. Maybe there was a nest of cicadas in the walls. I'd heard of that kind of thing. Logical, right? Except when I walked around with my phone's decibel meter app, The sound spiked strongest in places where no wiring should have been, like the center of the hallway or the middle of the living room floor. That's when I started noticing the furniture. It wasn't moving exactly, just shifting. The coffee table was 3 inches closer to the TV. The chair in the guest room faced a slightly different direction. I thought I was just misremembering, but one night, I snapped photos of the living room before going to bed, just to prove to myself nothing was happening. The next morning, the lamp had moved to the other side of the table, barely noticeable, but the photo confirmed it. There was something in this house with me, something subtle, patient, like it was testing what I'd notice. And then came the smell. Not a bad smell, exactly. Not rot or mold. It was old paper and dry wood, and something just a little metallic, like iron shavings or wet pennies. It would drift in, usually around sunset, just enough to make me look over my shoulder and think of basements and cardboard boxes. I finally worked up the nerve to go back into the attic on the 4th night. I told myself I was being ridiculous. I'd just unplug the VCR, toss the tape, and move on. Maybe even have a laugh about it someday. The hatch creaked open with a groan that sounded almost rehearsed. The attic was darker than I remembered, even with the flashlight. The beam caught dust motes hanging still in the air, like they'd been frozen mid-fall. Everything was where I'd left it. Box, VCR, CRT screen, blue and waiting. Except this time, the tape wasn't inside. I checked the machine. Nothing, not even in the slot. That's when I noticed the tape was already on top of the TV, just sitting there, like it had been placed gently down by someone with a trembling hand. But I hadn't been up here, not since the night it played itself, and I definitely hadn't rewound it. Still, curiosity's a strange drug. I don't remember making the decision. One moment, I was standing there. The next, I was sliding the tape back in, pressing play. The static came fast, louder this time. The screen shook a little, like the tape was fighting with the player. Then it stabilized. Same hallway, but now, the light was off, total black. I leaned in a little. I'm not proud of that. It felt like the screen was breathing, somehow. I wanted to know what was in that dark hallway, wanted to see what the camera was staring at, so intently. Then a click, the bulb flickered on, just for a second, and someone was standing right in front of the lens. I gasped, not screamed, not jumped, just this slow, helpless gasp, like my lungs couldn't find enough air for a reaction, because the person or thing on the screen didn't have a face, just a smeared shape, like someone had tried to blur it out with graphite. Then the screen cut to black. No static this time, no sound, just darkness, until the whisper started. It wasn't like last time. This wasn't coming from the tape. It was behind me, in the attic. I froze. No footsteps, no movement, just the sensation that someone was standing an inch from my back, breathing shallowly, like they'd been there a while. Watching, I turned slowly. Nothing there, but the attic felt off balance, like the air had shifted slightly to the left. My flashlight dimmed for half a second, and then flared bright again. When I turned back to the TV, the tape had stopped, and the screen now said, "Rewind." I didn't press anything, didn't need to. The VCR began rewinding on its own, making that telltale mechanical noise, like a tiny predator growling. I left. I didn't run. That would have been admitting something. I just walked deliberately down the steps, closed the hatch, and slid the bolt across it. I didn't go back into the attic after that, but the whispering, it started following me, room to room, soft at first, then louder, always just quiet enough to leave room for doubt. That hum I mentioned, it started to sound like a voice, and sometimes, late at night, I think it's trying to say my name. At first I tried to convince myself it was just stress. I'd inherited a creepy house, spent too many late nights poking around in the dark, and now my brain was tuning into phantom noises, like a radio that couldn't find the right station. That's what I told myself as I drank bad coffee and paced around the kitchen at 2 a.m., still hearing that hum threading through the silence like a strand of silver floss. But you can only lie to yourself for so long before the weirdness gets too specific. The whispers, once vague and mumbly, began to form shapes, not full sentences, but fragments, familiar phrases. Don't forget. Again, 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 and sometimes just under the breath of it, the sound of rewind, that high mechanical squeal of tape, dragging backward, playing itself in reverse. I recorded audio around the house, set up my phone on night mode, but it never picked anything up, just silence, or the occasional creak of the house settling, which felt more like gaslighting than comfort. Still, things escalated. It started with the clocks. My digital alarm reset itself 3 nights in a row. My microwave timer flashed random times, 4:19, 3:17, 0:01. Even though I hadn't touched it, the oven display went blank altogether. But the worst was the grandfather clock. It was one of those tall antique things in the front hallway. My uncle always kept it running. I'd forgotten about it until the second week, when I passed by it in the dark and realized the pendulum was swinging, slow, steady, tick-tock. Except I hadn't wound it, and it wasn't ticking in sync. It would pause, then double tick, then skip 3 beats, like it was glitching in real time. I opened the case to stop it manually, and found that the mechanism was missing entirely, just an empty cavity where the gears should have been. I closed the door and backed away, slow and deliberate, like I'd just discovered an open casket that didn't belong to anyone I knew. That night, the lights dimmed again at 3:17, and that was when I saw the hallway, not in the tape, in my house, the hallway from the footage. It didn't replace any part of my home. It didn't overlay the real hallway or flicker into place like some ghostly projection. It was just there, in the mirror, at the end of the kitchen table, where my reflection should have been. At first, I thought I was hallucinating, stress, maybe, sleep deprivation, but it stayed. For about 3 seconds, the hallway flickered into the mirror like it belonged there. Same slanted walls, same swaying light bulb. I could almost smell the cold air on the other side. Then it vanished. I didn't eat that night, didn't sleep either. The next morning, I found something new on the kitchen table. The tape, same one, black plastic, faded label, still said "for him" on the side. But now, there was a sticky note stuck to the front. Don't rewind, just listen. I hadn't touched the tape since the attic. I'd locked the hatch, taped it shut. Even, it shouldn't have been able to get downstairs, let alone leave me passive-aggressive post-its. But there it was. The VCR, naturally, was now sitting beneath the living room TV, like it had always been there, still warm. I didn't play it, not yet. I wasn't ready. Instead, I decided to leave the house, just for a bit, clear my head, maybe sleep in a hotel, somewhere with fluorescent lights and no dusty boxes from dead relatives, somewhere normal. So I packed a bag, wallet, charger, keys, got into my car, and that's when I noticed the time on the dash. 3:17, again, in the afternoon, except it wasn't. My phone said 11:32 a.m. My watch agreed, but my car, it insisted. 3:17, that exact minute, that exact second, the car wouldn't start. I turned the key, nothing. Dashboard flickered, radio clicked on, crackled with static, and then, the hallway, again, not in front of me, on the display screen. That tiny little touch screen meant for showing backup cams and GPS maps. It showed that same hallway, just for a flicker, and then the screen went black. I got out of the car and walked, didn't even bother locking the door behind me. I walked for hours, through town, past the grocery store, around the gas station where I used to buy penny candy when I was 7. Everything looked the same, normal, but people felt off. There was a man at the corner near the hardware store just standing still, staring straight ahead, mouthing something silently. I thought maybe he was on a Bluetooth call, but there was no earpiece, no phone in sight. His eyes were glassy, too glassy. I walked a little faster after that, past a woman pushing a stroller, except the stroller was empty, just a thick black blanket folded inside, moving like something beneath it was breathing. She didn't look at me, just whispered something to the blanket and kept moving. I got back home after sunset. The front door was unlocked, the tape was gone. I stood there for a long time, just inside the doorway, heart pounding in that slow, tired rhythm that feels like dread has finally settled in for good. And then the light in the hallway flickered, that same rhythm, same tempo. I turned, and for a heartbeat, the hallway had changed again, longer, narrower. The wallpaper, peeling, yellow, familiar in a way that knotted my stomach. I'd seen that hallway before, not just on tape. Somewhere else, somewhere buried deep. I blinked, gone. I went to bed without eating, didn't turn on the lights. I just lay there, waiting for something, not sure what. At 3:17, the lights flickered once, and then I heard a voice in the wall say, "We've already seen this part." Just that, casual, calm, like someone watching a rerun. I started leaving the TV on at night, not because I wanted to watch anything, God no, but because the silence was too thick, too full, like the house had started breathing with me, waiting for me to fall asleep before it exhaled something sharp into my dreams. The TV static helped. A little, white noise to drown out the low hum, the whispers, the not quite footsteps in the hallway, but it never really stopped, and I swear the static began sounding less like static, more like a voice. A few nights in, I noticed it, hidden in the fuzz and hiss, faint but rhythmic, almost like breathing. I leaned in close, and just beneath the surface of that white noise, I heard it whisper, "Don't fast forward, don't skip ahead." I jerked back, heart stuttering in my chest. I shut the TV off, but when the screen faded to black, it didn't reflect my face. It showed the hallway again, that same long narrow corridor with the flickering light, and soft, endless carpet, the same frame from the tape. Only this time, the camera was closer to the door at the end, much closer. I turned away before it could move again. Later that week, I gave up and re-watched the tape. I know, played this only once, but what else was I supposed to do? It kept coming back, on the kitchen table, on the windowsill. Once I found it nestled between my bed sheets, like it had tucked itself in. I figured watching it again would break the loop, face the fear, open the closet, and realize the monster isn't real. Yeah, classic horror movie mistake. So I sat in front of the VCR, now installed mysteriously in the guest bedroom, and I pressed play. The static hissed louder this time, sharper, like it had teeth. Then the hallway faded into view, only now it was moving. The camera wasn't fixed anymore. It glided forward, slow and deliberate, like someone holding it was walking toward the door at the end. The light overhead swayed in rhythm with the movement, casting long shadows that seemed to reach toward the viewer. Me. It stopped just short of the door, waited, then the whisper again, this time, clearer, "Don't look behind you." I didn't move, didn't breathe. I wanted to laugh, say nice try, haunted tape. I've seen this movie, but my spine was locked solid, and my skin felt like cold paper stretched too tight. Something did move behind me, just a shuffle, a shift in the air, a little weight on the floorboard that creaked by the closet. But I didn't turn, I couldn't. Eventually the screen faded to black again. No end credits, no tape rewind sound, just silence, the kind that feels like it's watching. I stayed frozen for a full 10 minutes before getting up. The air behind me felt thick, like it had teeth, but didn't want to bite. Not yet. I didn't sleep that night either. Till next morning, I found writing on the bathroom mirror, not steam, scratched, like someone had etched it in with a razor blade, or a bent nail. He's watching the repeat. Underneath that, in smaller print, barely legible, she warned you. I stared at it for a long time. My reflection stared back, eyes ringed with exhaustion, jaw tight with the quiet panic that doesn't scream. It simmers. I turned on the sink and scrubbed at the mirror with a towel. The scratches didn't fade. Later I found the hallway again, this time in a painting, not a real one, just a digital frame I had above the mantel. One of those rotating slideshow types my uncle had loaded with nature photos, forests, mountains, oceans, except now it showed the hallway, just for a second. Then the photo faded to a sunflower field again, like nothing had happened. I checked the settings. The frame was offline, no Wi-Fi, no USB connected, but the hallway had been there, and I swear, when I walked past it the next time, the angle had changed, closer again, almost to the doorknob. The real turning point came that evening. I was in the kitchen, trying to pretend life was normal, making toast, the world's least ambitious dinner. I glanced out the front window and saw her, a woman, standing on the porch in the rain. She wasn't knocking, wasn't moving, just standing there with her hands clasped in front of her and her head tilted slightly to the side. At first I thought it might be a neighbor, someone lost, but when I stepped closer to the window, I froze. Her face was wrong, not grotesque, not disfigured, just blurred, like it had been painted in watercolors and left in the rain too long, exactly like the shape I'd seen on the tape. She didn't blink, didn't look around. Then slowly, she lifted one hand and pressed her palm to the glass. It left no print, just fog. I backed away. I didn't go to the door. She didn't leave, not immediately. She just stood there, dripping, whispering something I couldn't hear. When I finally dared to peek again, she was gone, but the doormat was soaked, and on it a small piece of paper. I waited until morning to go get it. When I finally did, I unfolded the note with trembling hands. It was written in the same jagged, slanted handwriting from the tape's label. Have you rewound the memory yet? I didn't answer the door for the next 3 days. I kept the curtains drawn, the porch light off, and a heavy chair propped against the inside of the door, like I was expecting a siege. Part of me wanted to laugh at how paranoid I looked, but the other part, the one that had seen the hallway in the mirror and the woman's blurred face outside, that part didn't laugh anymore. The note sat on my kitchen table, still damp around the edges, like it had been dipped in something colder than rain. Have you rewound the memory yet? The phrasing stuck with me. Not tape, not video. Memory. I kept thinking about that word, turning it over in my mind. Why did it feel like something was trying to get into my head, or worse, already had? That night, I had the first dream. At least, I think it was a dream. I woke up, or maybe I didn't, in a hallway. Not mine, not the one from the tape. This one was older, dustier, wood-paneled walls, and faded floral wallpaper, peeling at the edges, like it had been underwater for a few years. I couldn't see a light source, but everything was dimly lit anyway. Dream logic. I walked forward, bare feet echoing on wooden floorboards that felt damp and warm. The kind of warmth that isn't comforting, more like something recently vacated. As I walked, I passed picture frames, but they were blank, all of them. Same ornate brass borders, glass intact, but nothing inside. No faces, no color, just empty beige. Then I heard the tape, that unmistakable whirring, slow, mechanical, a VCR somewhere, chewing through footage. And then came the music, not a melody, exactly, just a sequence of slow, atonal notes, like someone was trying to play a lullaby, but didn't know what sound sadness was supposed to make. I turned a corner, and there it was again, the hallway, the one from the tape. But this time, it wasn't grainy. It was crystal clear. The light overhead buzzed softly, and the bulb swayed slightly, even though there was no breeze. I stepped into it without thinking, and as soon as I did, everything felt wrong. The walls leaned in, the carpet felt sticky under my feet. The shadows stretched out like arms reaching for something they couldn't quite touch. I reached the door at the end. I didn't open it. I just stood there, heart pounding with that thick, syrupy dread you only feel in dreams. The kind where you know something terrible is just behind the next action, but curiosity's claws are already sunk in. Then I woke up, or I thought I did, because when I sat up in bed, sweating and gasping, the static was already playing on the TV. I hadn't turned it on. The tape was playing. The hallway. Again. But this time, the camera was right up against the door. The screen flickered once, and the door slowly began to open. That was the night I unplugged the VCR. Actually, that's not accurate. I yanked the plug out of the wall and hurled the tape across the room like it had bitten me. It hit the far wall, bounced off the heater, and landed under the couch. I didn't retrieve it. I didn't even touch the machine. Just left it there like a pile of coiled snakes, and sat outside on the front steps for the rest of the night, listening to the wind rustle the dry leaves, and trying not to look at the shadows behind the window. By morning, the tape was back on the table, perfectly centered, dry, unscathed, label facing me, like it wanted to remind me what it was for him. And underneath that, something new had been added in ink, so faded, it looked like it had been written long ago. Do not forget the shape of your own fear. I needed answers. I couldn't keep circling this thing like prey. If I didn't get in front of it, I had the distinct and awful feeling it was going to crawl behind my eyes and wear me like a glove. So I went back into the attic. I know, I said I wouldn't, but fear only holds power over you if you let it tighten the leash, and I needed to know where this all started. The air was still up there, still thick. The TV and VCR were gone again. Just a flat piece of cardboard on the floor where they had been. It was stained in the shape of the TV's base, but the objects themselves were gone like they'd been lifted out of time. But there was something else, a single envelope, yellowed, unsealed, and resting gently on top of a photo album I hadn't noticed before. Inside the envelope was a note, typed on a typewriter, or maybe an old computer with a dying ribbon. The ink was patchy and uneven. It read, "To whoever finds this, you cannot undo what you've already watched. You can only follow it to its end. The hallway is not a place. It is a return. Tell her I'm sorry." Underneath the letter was a photograph, black and white, a child standing in the hallway from the tape, blurry, but if you squinted, you could just barely make out a shape behind him. Something tall, not quite human, not quite not. The child had no face, but I recognized the pajamas. I had worn the same pair, blue with little crescent moons. I sat on the attic floor for what felt like hours, the photo still in my hand, the typewritten letter curled slightly at the corners like it didn't want to be read anymore. The boy in the picture could have been anyone, but the pajamas, those stupid moon-patterned pajamas, I hadn't thought about them in years. I remembered how the tag itched the back of my neck, how the fabric always felt a little too warm, even in winter. My mom used to make me wear them on nights when I couldn't sleep, said they'd catch dreams like a net. Except now I was starting to wonder if they'd caught something else entirely. The hallway is not a place. It is a return. I reread that line at least 10 times. It didn't make any more sense the 10th time than it had the first, but it felt true, like a bell ringing behind glass. I took the letter and photo downstairs, leaving the attic hatch open behind me. I figured if the house wanted to play games, I wasn't going to pretend they weren't happening. Let it creak and groan and whisper. I was done playing polite. I set the photo and letter on the coffee table, sat across from them, just stared. The tape was still on the table too. This time it had been rewound. I didn't do it, but the VCR somehow was back, hooked up to the TV again, like nothing had ever been unplugged. The power cord still looped behind the cabinet, still warm to the touch. I didn't press play. Instead, I pressed eject. The tape slid out, quiet and smooth. I stared at it, and then I saw it. A single line etched into the plastic case that I hadn't noticed before. Barely visible, only when the light hit it at the right angle. You're already in it. I didn't go outside for 2 days after that. Not out of fear, exactly. Just a heavy sense that if I stepped out that door, the house might change behind me. Or maybe the world would. Like the hallway would follow me, leak out across the yard, and down the street, and into places where it didn't belong. So I stayed in. I watched old reruns, made stovetop popcorn, tried to live like I hadn't been drafted into some unwelcome analog haunting. But the dreams got worse. I kept waking up in that hallway, always further down than before, always closer to the door, and behind me, something always followed. Not footsteps, not breathing, just a presence, like the hallway itself was aware of me now. The night I hit the doorknob, I woke up drenched in sweat, shivering, my hand actually extended out in real life, fingers clenched, like I'd just let go of something cold and metal. And when I turned on the light, there was dust on my fingertips, the same reddish dust from the hallway carpet. That morning, I noticed a pattern. The lights always dimmed at 3:17 a.m. The whispers always came right before it. The static always started just after. It was a ritual, a rhythm, the same one the tape followed. I started recording everything. Audio logs, handwritten notes. I drew maps of the hallway from memory, trying to figure out if it matched any real building. Abandoned hospitals, old schools, asylums. I came up with nothing. But then I remembered something my uncle had once said when I was little. I must have been 8 or 9, sitting at his kitchen table while he made tea, and told weird stories about liminal thresholds and the magnetic patterns of memory. Stuff I didn't understand, but which stuck in that way creepy stories do when told late at night by someone who doesn't blink enough. He'd leaned over and whispered, "Some doors remember you." At the time I thought he meant metaphorically. Now I wasn't so sure. I went looking through his stuff again, not just the attic, everywhere. Drawers, closets, basement. That's when I found the notebook, buried in a shoebox beneath old tax papers and manuals for appliances I didn't own. The notebook was thin, leather-bound, with yellowed pages. No title, just a symbol on the front, 3 parallel lines, crossed once in the center. Inside it was filled with scribbles, notes, diagrams, and one page I'll never forget. It read, "Playback is a loop. All memory is repetition. We don't remember, we replay. The tape is only a trigger. The hallway is a location in the mind. It finds its way out through electrical noise, mirrors, dreams. The longer you remember, the closer it gets. Let it go, or it will play you next." Underneath that, a name I didn't recognize, Margot. She remembers too. And a phone number, a landline. I stared at that number for a long time. I don't know why, but I hesitated. Something about seeing a new character in this bizarre play made it feel more real, less like a dream I hadn't woken up from. Eventually I dialed it. The line rang 5 times before someone picked up. A voice, female, older, dry, and hesitant, like she hadn't spoken in a while. "Hello." I cleared my throat. "Is this Margot?" A long pause, too long. "Then who gave you this number?" "I think my uncle knew you," I said. He left behind a tape, a VHS. It said, "Play this only once." Another silence, then a soft shaking sigh, like she'd been waiting for this call for years. "Oh," she whispered. "Oh no, not again." "Tell me exactly what you've seen," Margot said. Her voice wasn't sharp, just weary, like she'd had this conversation before and hoped she wouldn't have to have it again. I told her everything. The tape, the hallway, the static, the dreams, the woman with the blurred face. I even told her about the note in the attic, the one that said, "Tell her I'm sorry." When I said that part, the line went completely quiet. I thought maybe the call had dropped, but then I heard it, that same whirring sound, a mechanical tape rewind, not loud, but definitely there, not on my end. Are you near a VCR right now?" I asked. "No," she said, immediately, and then quieter, "but sometimes it plays anyway." She explained it like this: the tape is a vector, not a cause, like a needle carrying a virus. You don't get infected by what it shows, you get infected by remembering it. Watching is the match, remembering is the fire. The hallway isn't a metaphor, she said. It's real, but not in a way your body can reach. Only your memory. I asked her what was behind the door, at the end of the hallway. She didn't answer right away. "You haven't opened it yet?" she finally asked. "No," I said, "not in the dream, not on the tape." "Good, don't. If you do, it won't just be a memory anymore." "Then what is it?" "A copy," she said, "a recording of you, from before, or maybe from after. I still don't know." It sounded crazy. I said as much. She let out a dry laugh. "Of course it does. That's how it stays alive. Inside disbelief, inside repetition. The more you explain it, the more you wrap it in logic, the deeper it roots, like a parasite with manners." I asked her how it started. Silence again, then a sigh. "It started with someone I loved," she said. "A boy who had dreams he couldn't wake from. We found the tape in a thrift shop, of all places, back when people still watched VHS. It didn't even have a label then, just blank plastic." I leaned back against the kitchen counter, still holding the receiver to my ear, eyes locked on the tape that sat unmoving on my coffee table. I half expected it to twitch. "I watched it first," Margot continued. "He watched it after, and we weren't the same. We'd lose time. We'd dream the same places. And always, the hallway. Always that door." "Did he open it?" I asked. She didn't answer for a long time. Then, in the smallest whisper I've ever heard through a phone, "Yes, he's still there." Her voice broke on the word "still," like the sentence hurt to say. I didn't ask more. I didn't need to, because deep down I knew what she meant. This wasn't about ghosts, not really. It was about memory, and how it records us, like how a smell can drag you back to childhood, or how hearing a song at the wrong moment can crack you open like a shell. Except this tape didn't bring back a memory. It added one, like it was giving me something that had never been mine to begin with, but somehow still fit, like it had always been waiting for me. I asked her how to stop it. Margot was quiet again. "You can't," she said. "You can only delay it, and choose what kind of copy you leave behind." Then she said something I didn't understand at the time. "Don't record over yourself. That's how it gets in." Before I could ask what that meant, the line clicked. Dead, just static. And yes, somewhere in the background of that static, I swore I heard the faint click of a tape reaching its end. I stood there in the quiet, the receiver still warm in my hand. The house creaked once, like it was shifting its weight. And then I heard it, that voice again, only now it was coming through the floor vents. "Play it again." Soft, almost pleading, like someone forgotten was waiting to be remembered. I looked at the tape, then at the VCR, then at the photo on the table, the one of the faceless child in the crescent moon pajamas, and in that moment, I remembered something real, something I hadn't thought of in decades. It was the night I got locked in my childhood basement. I'd gone down to look for an old Halloween costume. The door had shut behind me. No one heard me calling. I was alone for maybe an hour, long enough to cry, to imagine monsters in the dark, to think I'd never get out. When my uncle finally opened the door, he looked scared, not angry, not even relieved. Scared, and he'd said, "Don't tell your mom what you saw down there." I never questioned it, never even remembered it, until now. But suddenly, I could remember, not the basement, but the hallway, longer than it should have been, wallpaper peeling like damp skin, a light that buzzed like static in a jar. I had seen it before, not on the tape, in my own memory, and I hadn't watched the tape again yet, which meant the hallway had already been there, long before this. Maybe it had always been there, waiting. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't even try. I sat in the living room with the lights off, the VCR on standby, the tape on the table beside me, like a ticking clock, and sometime around 3:17, the screen flickered on by itself, static, then playback initiated. No buttons pressed, no remote in sight. The hallway appeared again, but this time, the door at the end was wide open. The door on the screen stood wide open, perfectly still, but somehow, the stillness made it worse, like it was waiting for me to notice what had changed. The hallway was quiet, no wind, no creaking wood, no footsteps, just that electric hum, threading through the silence, like a warning someone had forgotten to say out loud. I leaned forward, squinting at the screen. I couldn't see anything beyond the doorway, just a rectangle of thick black, deeper than the shadows in the hallway itself. It looked hungry, didn't mean to move closer. But I did. Something about the tape, about the void behind that door, pulled at the brain like gravity in reverse. Just when I thought the screen couldn't possibly get darker, something stepped out. Only, it didn't move the way people do. It didn't emerge. It unfolded. First a shadow, then a shape, then limbs, long ones, disproportionate, like someone built a person from memory, but got the scale slightly wrong. The face, of course, was blurred, that same watery smear, like fogged glass in a cold bathroom mirror. But the worst part, it was wearing my shirt. I reached for the remote without thinking, hit stop. Nothing. I tried again, still nothing. The tape kept playing. The figure on the screen stepped into the hallway, gliding rather than walking, each motion too smooth, too deliberate, like it had studied how people move, but didn't understand why. And then it looked directly at the camera. No eyes, but I felt the weight of its gaze. Then it smiled. Not a mouth, just a suggestion of one, like the static itself bent slightly, in the shape of teeth. And then it spoke, only, not out loud. The speakers stayed silent, but the words appeared on the screen, one by one, like captions on a film I never wanted to watch. I remember you. Do you remember me? We played this before. And then suddenly, cut to black, just a click. The tape stopped. The VCR powered down. I was left in the dark, with my own breath shaking in my chest. Nothing else happened for the rest of the night. No voices, no whispers, no footsteps. But that was almost worse. The silence felt thick, waiting, like the tape wasn't done, just paused, the kind of pause that waits for your curiosity to win. By morning, I was convinced I'd imagined it all, not because I didn't believe it had happened, but because believing it meant something far worse, that whatever was on that tape didn't need power, Didn't need film, didn't even need permission. It was already in me. That afternoon, I called Margot again. No answer. I called the number 6 times. On the 7th, it rang once, and then the line picked up. No voice, just a faint familiar sound. That hallway, that hum, and something else beneath it, breathing, shallow, raspy, and way too close to the microphone. I hung up immediately, then unplugged the phone from the wall and threw it in a drawer like that would help. It didn't. Later that night, the answering machine turned itself on and started playing, just static. Then underneath it, very faintly, "You already pressed play." But I found another note the next morning, taped to the bathroom mirror again. Same scrawled handwriting, different message. "Do not rewind, not again." And in smaller letters, "It learns what you remember." I tore the note down and shoved it into the trash. But by that point, it didn't matter. The dreams were every night now, each one picking up exactly where the last left off. I didn't just see the hallway anymore. I walked it. I could feel the fibers of the carpet under my bare feet, smell the dusty, metallic scent of the wallpaper, hear that low, steady hum, like an old refrigerator dying slowly. The door, of course, was always open now. I never stepped inside, but I always stood there, looking, and every time, I saw a little more of what waited inside. Shapes, furniture, the mirror, far in the back, reflecting something, not me, something wearing me. One night, just before waking, I saw the creature again. It stood at the far end of the room beyond the door, still wearing my face, my clothes, only now it had eyes, and they weren't blurred anymore. They were mine. And then I understood. This wasn't just a haunting. It wasn't about the tape, not really. It was about recording. The hallway wasn't replaying someone else's memory. It was making a new one, of me, like the tape was filming in reverse. And every time I remembered it, every time I saw it in dreams or mirrors or shadows, it pressed rec. It was capturing my reaction, my fear, then shaping itself to fit me more completely, like a reflection slowly becoming more real than what it's copying. I tried to leave again, packed a bag, grabbed my keys, walked right out the front door. I even made it to the car this time. But when I opened the door, the driver's seat was full of static. Not a metaphor, just static, crackling fuzz, floating inside like a snow globe full of electricity. It didn't make sense. It shouldn't be possible, but it was there. Then for a second, just one, I saw a shape inside it, a figure, sitting in the seat, smiling, with my face. I slammed the car door shut, didn't even bother checking if the figure was still there. I ran back inside the house and locked every door, every window, drew the curtains, turned on every light like it would help. Like brightness could banish something that had been born in memory. But even with every bulb glowing, the shadows didn't quite leave. They lingered in corners, behind doors, beneath tables, like the house itself was unsure what belonged to it anymore. I tried to breathe, tried to center myself, and then I noticed something new. The tape was gone, not on the coffee table, not in the VCR. I searched the whole house, tore through every drawer, every closet, even braved the attic again. Nothing. At first, I felt relieved, but then it hit me. I didn't feel alone anymore. Not in the haunted house, spooky movie sense. I mean that something else was here. It wasn't outside anymore. It was in the walls, the air, inside me. I started seeing flickers out of the corner of my eye. Not always the hallway now, sometimes just parts of it. A door frame, a carpet edge, the faint glimmer of that swaying light bulb. The once I saw the entire doorknob turning by itself, not in real life, in a reflection, to the window just before dawn. And when I turned around to check, nothing. that the reflection lingered just a moment too long, like the mirror wasn't done showing me what came next. I stopped trusting my eyes. After that, started using my phone's camera to check things first. Mirrors, doorways, corners. I figured the screen would catch something the naked eye wouldn't. That worked for a while, until it didn't, because that night, when I pointed my phone toward the bathroom mirror, the screen showed me, but I wasn't holding a phone. I was holding the tape, and I was smiling. I dropped the phone, didn't even pick it up, just backed away from the mirror, and closed the bathroom door with the slow caution of someone who didn't want to hear what was on the other side. I started pacing. My mind kept circling Margot's words. Don't record over yourself. I still didn't know what she meant exactly, but something about it stuck, felt important and terrifying, like the hallway, or the tape, or the thing wearing my face, needed me to forget something in order to fully take my place. I went back to the notebook from the attic, my uncle's notes, his diagrams, the barely coherent warnings. Near the back was a half-burned page, only a few legible lines left. It mimics, but not all at once. It waits for gaps, moments when you question your own memory. That's where it grows, and at the very bottom, when the copy completes, the original fades. That's when it started, the forgetting. It was small at first, silly things. I couldn't remember what day it was, not just the date. The day, Tuesday, Friday, no clue. I checked my phone calendar, saw a number, and felt nothing, like it didn't mean anything anymore. Then it got worse. I couldn't remember my own phone number. Then the name of the street I grew up on. Then my best friend's voice from high school. I could picture his face, even remember the way he laughed. But the sound of it, gone. Like the memory had been taped over, like someone hit record and just taped new footage on top of the old. That's when I understood. Every time I remembered the hallway, every time I dreamed about it, or saw it in reflections, it took something from me. A memory, a piece, and in its place, it left something else. I had to do something. I couldn't run. I couldn't forget, but maybe I could reverse it. So I dug up my old camera, the analog kind. No digital tricks, just film and light, and time. I stood in front of the mirror and started talking, just saying everything I could remember. My name, my childhood address, the smell of my mother's perfume, the first book I ever read alone. I didn't know if it would work, but I had to try to record myself before the hallway finished its version, before the thing on the tape became me. I played the footage back later. My voice was shaky. The lighting was bad, but it was me. And for now, that had to be enough. But just as I was about to shut the camera off, I heard something behind my recorded voice, faint, garbled, like another audio track had bled through. It said, "That won't help you now. I've started seeing the hallway during the day, not in reflections anymore. Just there, outside the bedroom window, in the rearview mirror of a parked car, once in the fridge, of all places, like a deep tunnel burrowed into the milk cartons and leftovers. And always, always, that door is open now. Sometimes I hear it creak, like it's swinging wider. Sometimes I hear it breathe. But the worst moment came this morning. I woke up in bed, sunlight on my face, and for a brief blissful second, I thought maybe it had stopped. Then I sat up and looked at the foot of my bed. There, sitting calmly, as if it had been waiting all night, was the VHS tape. No label anymore, just one word, carved into the plastic: return. I didn't touch the tape. Not at first. I just stared at it, sitting there on the blanket, like a house cat, waiting to be acknowledged. No dust, no scuff marks, just perfectly pristine black plastic. And that single word, return, carved into it like an instruction, or a command. I wanted to scream, to tear it apart, burn it, smash the VCR. But I remembered what Margot said. It learns what you remember. Violence was just more footage for it, more data. So instead, I stood up slowly and walked out of the room. I left the tape behind, or at least, I tried to, because 2 minutes later, after I made coffee, after I sat at the kitchen table and tried to pretend I had any control left, I glanced over, and it was there. On the table, again, right where the sugar jar used to be. This time there was a note taped to the back, in my handwriting. It's not a copy of it. My actual handwriting. Same slight slant to the right. Same weird loop on my capital G. I didn't remember writing it. It read, "You have to finish it. Otherwise it stays half you, half it. A loop needs an end. You know what happens if it stays open. Play it." Underneath the note, smaller, shakier print. Margot did. I set the tape down gently, like it might bite, if startled. I didn't want to believe it, that I'd written that I would write it. But that was the thing, wasn't it? I wasn't just watching anymore. The tape was watching me, recording, looping, waiting for the next beat in the pattern. I could feel it. The story wanted an ending, to spend the rest of the day pacing the house, like a trapped animal. Windows open, then closed, lights on, then off. I didn't eat, didn't drink. Every mirror showed the hallway now, this not as a full image, just fragments, reflections bent at odd angles, corners of that damn wallpaper, glimpses of that swaying light. And sometimes, just sometimes, the door in the mirror was closed again, but only for a second. Then it would creak open, with that familiar slow, heavy sigh. I kept thinking about the copy, the other me, how close it was getting, how familiar it looked now that I hadn't seen it outright in a few days. But I could feel its presence, like it was pacing with me. Just one room, over, just out of sync, like an echo. I couldn't hear, but could sense. At dusk, I went up to the attic again. I don't know why. Call it instinct, or maybe a pull, like the story was dragging me to the climax. Whether I wanted it or not, the VCR was back, TV on, tape inserted. The screen was blue, waiting for input. Turned on the floor in front of it, an old photo album I didn't remember seeing before. It was open to a page with 3 pictures. All of them showed the hallway, not from the tape's perspective, from mine, standing in the doorway, looking down the corridor. In the 3rd photo, the door at the end was open, and something was stepping out. It wasn't blurry anymore. It was clear, and it was me. I sat down cross-legged in front of the screen. The room was hot. The air felt thick with breath that wasn't mine. I reached out and pressed play. The static surged, and then the hallway appeared. Same angle as always, but this time, different. The camera wasn't moving. I was walking down the hallway, slowly, 1 foot at a time. I could see my own hands, feel the carpet under my feet, even though I wasn't moving in real life. It was a perfect sync. I was inside the tape now, not metaphorically, not imaginatively, literally. Some part of me had crossed over. The door loomed, closer than ever. I reached it. The hallway buzzed like a dying wasp hive, loud and angry, and urgent. I reached for the doorknob. My hand in the video moved exactly with mine, and just before I turned it, I heard my own voice from the screen. "You don't have to do this." I froze. That hadn't happened before. No caption, no subtitle, just me, speaking from within the tape. "Let it loop," the voice said again. "Don't end it. If you end it, it becomes you. If you stop remembering, it replaces you." Then another voice, lower, raspier, not mine. It whispered, "Too late." The door opened. The screen went black. No noise, just silence. Not dead silence. pregnant silence, like the world had stopped waiting for something to happen and had finally decided to act on its own. And then, from the speaker, a new sound, wet, organic, like tape being pulled slowly from a reel, not mechanical, flesh-like, and the last frame before the screen cut entirely. My face, staring back at me, smiling, and blinking, exactly 2 seconds behind my own blinks. I stood up too fast, and nearly fell backward. The screen was blank. The tape had ejected itself, and across the plastic fresh, not scratched this time, was one new word: recording. I didn't touch the tape, couldn't. My hands hovered near it, twitching slightly with some instinct that didn't belong to me anymore, like my muscles were getting used to someone else's movements. The label had changed. I watched it do it. The word recording etched itself into the plastic in real time, letter by letter, like the heat of the tape's memory was branding it anew. The VCR's red light was on, not flashing, solid, recording. I hadn't pressed anything. The TV screen was black, but a soft hum buzzed from the speakers, like a microphone picking up silence. I backed out of the attic slowly, closing the hatch behind me, like I was sealing away a crime scene. But even through the ceiling, I could still hear it. The whirring, the magnetic tape spooling endlessly. It was taping something. It was taping me. I started forgetting faster after that. Bigger things, the name of my high school, my first job, my uncle's face, gone. When I tried to picture him, all I could see was a hallway. His voice, just static. And at some point that day, I realized something that should have horrified me more than it did. I couldn't remember my own last name. I knew my first, but the second half of my identity, erased, like a worn label that had been peeled off a suitcase left in the rain. I checked my ID. The name was still there, but it looked wrong, like someone else had written it, like the letters didn't belong to the person holding the card, like the ID itself was watching me, trying to match a face it no longer recognized. That evening, just after sunset, I caught my reflection doing something it shouldn't. I was in the kitchen, making tea, simple, normal. I reached for the mug, turned toward the sink, and glanced at the dark window above it, and my reflection was still facing forward, just standing there, smiling. No eyes, just black, where the irises should have been, swirling, like tape unraveling underwater. I didn't scream, didn't run, I just stared, and then my reflection raised its hand and waved, like we were old friends, like it had missed me. I didn't sleep that night, didn't even try. Instead, I walked the hallway of my own house, back and forth, like somehow keeping myself in motion would prevent whatever was watching me from pressing stop. But as I paced, I realized something. The hallway was changing, not the dream hallway, not the one on the tape, mine, the one between my bedroom and the bathroom. The wallpaper was fading, peeling at the corners. The light overhead buzzed, flickering at just the right frequency to make my skin crawl, and the floor felt soft, spongy, not like carpet, more like old tape, worn down from too many replays. I stopped, pressed my palm to the wall. It felt warm, and somewhere inside, something moved. I think it breathed. I ran outside, didn't pack, didn't lock the door. I just left, into the night, under the low moan of wind that seemed to come from nowhere. I drove, didn't care where, just away. The streetlights flickered as I passed beneath them. Not all, just some. Like the tape had preferences now, picking which lights to kill, which shadows to stretch. Eventually, I stopped at a motel, run down, neon sign buzzing like it was trying to remember its own name. I paid cash, didn't use my ID, not that it felt like mine anymore. The clerk barely looked at me, but when he handed over the room key, he paused. "Hey," he said. "You look familiar." I forced a smile, Probably just a common face. He blinked, looked uncertain. No, I think I saw you on TV. The room was small, stale smelling, beige everything. I didn't sleep, just sat on the bed with the curtains drawn tight and the TV off. Or, I tried, because around 3 a.m., it turned on by itself. No remote, just a click. The screen flickered, and there I was. Not a hallway this time, not a reflection, just me, sitting on the edge of a bed, in a beige motel room, wearing exactly what I was wearing right now. Only difference, on screen me was smiling, and in their hand, they were holding the tape, label, live. I covered the TV with a blanket, pulled the plug from the wall. Didn't matter, the hum kept going, and the tape kept playing, even without a machine, even without a screen, because when I closed my eyes, it was there, in the dark behind my eyelids, playing, frame by frame, my memories, my expressions, my movements, my voice, all slightly off, like someone was wearing a mask of me, and the rubber was starting to split around the edges. And just before I drifted into something that wasn't quite sleep, I heard a voice, not from outside, from inside me, soft, calm. I knew it instantly. It was my own voice, but older, more tired, and it whispered, "We never stopped playing." I woke up in the motel room with my jaw clenched tight, cheeks sore like I'd been smiling in my sleep. Not a pleasant smile, a taped-on one. The blanket was still over the TV, the cord unplugged, but the hum hadn't stopped. It had just moved. Now it came from the bathroom, a low, warbling static, like someone had left a faucet running in a dimension made entirely of white noise. I stood, walked to the door with the same heavy hesitation I always had in the dreams, and when I opened it, the hallway was there, not a reflection, not a dream. The actual hallway from the tape, from my dreams, from my memory. In place of the bathroom, same peeling wallpaper, same single swaying bulb, same door at the end. Only now, it wasn't at the end of anything. It was in my world, in my motel room. The hallway had come through, and it was real. I didn't step into it, not then. Instead, I backed away, closed the door gently, like I was tucking a sleeping child into bed, and sat on the edge of the mattress, head in my hands, because I finally understood. This wasn't a haunting. This wasn't even a curse. It was a copying process. The tape, the hallway, the dreams, they weren't meant to scare me. That was just how it started, like a boot-up sequence, a cold open. All it wanted, all it had ever wanted, was to finish the file, to finalize the recording, to complete the version of me it was building. And I was out of space, not in my house, not on the tape, in me. I tried calling Margot again. No answer. I left a voicemail, didn't even know what I said, just garbled words, part confession, part apology, part desperate plea. It said last call you. I checked again. It still said it. Not Margot. Not a number. Just you. Like I'd called myself. Like there was no Margot anymore. Or worse, there never had been. I couldn't leave the motel. Not physically. The car wouldn't start. My keys looked off, like replicas. Plastic. Not metal. Just props. When I tried to walk to the front desk, the hallway kept stretching. 10 steps, 20, 50, no doors, no end. I turned around, expecting to see the motel room behind me. Nope. More hallway, different wallpaper, dimmer lights, familiar hum. I knew where I was. Not the motel, not even the house, the hallway, and I wasn't watching it anymore. I was in it. I walked, not because I wanted to, but because the idea of standing still felt somehow worse. The walls pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. The light above me flickered once every few seconds, just enough to disorient. I tried to count my steps. lost track after 200. Then I saw it, a mirror, hanging crooked on the wall, like it had been there for years. I looked into it. I was still me, sort of, but my face flickered slightly, like static across skin. My smile was a little too wide. My eyes took too long to blink. I tried to speak. The reflection didn't. It just watched, and then mouthed a single word. Soon, the hallway turned sharply. That was new. It had never bent before. Always straight, always forward. But now, a corner. I rounded it, came to a room. Not a door, just an open space, like a set on a soundstage. And inside, a copy of my living room, my actual one. Same sofa, same rug, same photo of my uncle on the shelf, except everything was slightly wrong. The angle's off, the color muted, the TV was on, and I was on it. Again, but not live this time. This was earlier, from the attic, when I'd pressed play. The recording of a recording, and on screen me. He looked happy, too happy, like someone pretending to remember how joy works. Like the tape was trying to guess what I used to feel. I stepped back, the scene flickered, changed. Now it was a different room. The motel, same angle, but this time, the bed was empty, and the door to the bathroom, wide open, hallway behind it. Flickering softly, I watched as something stepped through, wearing my shirt, my face, smiling. It walked toward the camera, stared directly into the lens, and whispered, "We finished, then now, you can rest." And the screen went black. I turned around. The hallway had gone. In its place, the motel room again, perfectly normal. TV off, curtains still drawn. It was morning. Somehow, I opened the door and stepped outside. The car keys worked. The engine started. The sun was up. Birds chirped. It felt like the end, like the tape had played its final scene. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt empty, like something had been taken, like a chapter had ended and been erased from the table of contents. I couldn't remember what I was running from anymore, just that it had smiled like me. The world felt thinner after that, like I was walking through a replica of it, a paper-thin version where all the edges had been sanded down. Familiar streets felt distant, colors were muted, sounds were hollow, like they bounced off invisible walls, and time didn't feel right. I'd blink, and an hour would pass. I'd check my watch, and it'd be 3 minutes behind the last time I checked, even if it'd clearly been longer. People looked at me differently too, not with suspicion, with recognition, like they'd seen me somewhere before, in a dream, on TV, in some dusty old box, labeled, "Watch only once." I tried calling friends. Some numbers didn't even ring, just gave that long, empty silence where the connection should have been. Others answered, and hung up immediately. When I called my own number from a burner phone, it went straight to voicemail. The message, my voice, not mine now, mine then, calmer, cheerier, the version of me before this all started. It said, "Hey, you've reached me, but I'm not here anymore." You know how the story goes, then a long pause, then static, then a whisper, barely audible, "This is the copy now." That night, I wandered the city, not aimlessly. There was a pull, like a thread wrapped around my ribs, tugging me forward. It led me to a thrift store, closed for years, according to the sign that the door was unlocked. Inside it was dark, dusty, and cold. I walked through the aisles slowly, fingers grazing faded sweaters, chipped mugs, ancient VHS tapes in cracked clamshell cases, and then I saw it. Not a tape, the tape, just sitting on a shelf, like it had never left. No label this time, but I knew it the way you know a song before you realize you're humming it. I picked it up, held it in both hands. It was warm. I looked around. No clerk, No sound, but a small CRT television in the corner flickered on, blue screen, VCR built in, waiting. I knew what I had to do, even though I didn't want to, even though every part of me screamed leave it, destroy it, run. But that was the thing I hadn't understood before. Running didn't matter, because the hallway wasn't behind me. It was in me, always had been. I sat down in front of the TV, slid the tape in, pressed play, static, then the hallway, then the sound, the hum, familiar and wrong, then the door, already open, and this time, there was no hesitation. The camera moved forward, gliding through that door like a slow inhale. Inside it was dark, not absence of light dark, just memory dark, the way you can feel something's there, even if your eyes don't agree. Shapes drifted in the corners, furniture that didn't belong to me, fragments of dreams I'd forgotten, and in the very center of the room, a chair, facing away, someone sitting in it, their hand dangled off the armrest, motionless. I leaned closer, the camera kept moving, until the figure in the chair turned, and it was me, of course, but not the me I remembered, older, tired, like he'd been sitting there for a long, long time. He looked into the camera, into me, and said, "We're done now." I tried to speak. The screen flickered, and I heard myself answer, out loud, not from the tape, from my own mouth. "I know." The screen went black, the tape ejected itself, the TV turned off, and I just sat there, not scared, not relieved, just done. I left the thrift store, left the tape behind, didn't look back, because I didn't need to. The story was complete. The loop had closed. I could feel it, like a fever breaking, like a song ending. Back home, things were quiet. The mirrors showed only me. The hallway was just a hallway again. Short, slightly uneven floorboards. One bulb that still flickered sometimes, but nothing more. I could sleep, and when I dreamed, it was of empty roads, soft wind, no doors, no static. I wasn't sure if I was still me, but I was something, and for the first time in weeks, I wasn't afraid of that. I didn't remember everything. Names were still missing. Memories felt distant, like old photographs, familiar, but no longer mine. But I was real again. Whatever the tape had taken, maybe it had given something back. A blank space, a second chance. I don't know what the hallway was, not really. Maybe a parasite, maybe a warning, maybe a mirror, showing people who they almost became. But I do know this. There are still copies out there, still tapes, still doors, and someone, somewhere, will press play, because that's what we do, isn't it? We look at the box that says play this only once, and we press play anyway. Curiosity kills us, and then if we're lucky, brings us back as someone else, someone who remembers just enough to leave the door closed. The days blurred after that, not in a bad way, not like before when each one felt stolen or misremembered or quietly erased while I wasn't looking. Now they were soft, muted, like an old film reel playing at half speed, all warmth and scratches and the occasional flicker where something used to be. I woke up most mornings without panic. The sun came through the windows, and I watched the dust dance in it like little particles of static, harmless now, just light, just life. The hallway never shifted again. It stayed the length it should have been. No more growing, no more breathing, no more doors that didn't belong, still creaked sometimes. But now that sound was just old wood, nothing sinister, nothing watching, but something stayed with me, a presence, not malevolent, just aware, like the echo of the hallway, never fully left, like I had a little bit of it inside me now, dormant, but listening, not to harm me, to remind me, Sometimes when I look into a dark screen, a powered-off TV, a black phone screen, the shine of a microwave door, I swear I see something move. Not much, just a twitch, a flicker, like it's checking in, like it's making sure I haven't forgotten. I still have dreams, not often, that when I do, they're quiet. I walk down hallways, but they don't stretch anymore. They end where they should. No open doors, no humming, no doppelgangers smiling back. And in the dreams, I'm always holding something, not the tape, not the box, just a key. I never use it, I just carry it. Maybe that's what the whole thing was about in the end. Not unlocking anything, just learning to carry it. I don't talk about it much. Who would believe it? The world doesn't exactly have a hotline for, "Hi, I might have been temporarily overwritten by a paranormal VHS tape from my dead uncle's attic." But sometimes in the quiet hours of night, when the world slows down and the walls feel close and comforting, I think of you, whoever you are, out there, listening to this, and I wonder, have you seen it? The box? The hallway? Have you played it? If not, I hope you never do. But if you have, and you're here now, that means you made it through. Or at least, something that sounds like you did. One last thing. I went back to the attic yesterday. Don't ask me why. Maybe part of me needed to know for sure that it was all over, that the VCR wasn't waiting, that the screen was dark for good. It was dusty, quiet, full of the usual smell of insulation and time. But in the far corner, I saw something. A box, not the box, smaller, cardboard, worn, no markings. Inside it, a stack of old Polaroids. Most of them were blank, or blurred, but one showed the hallway, and at the very end of it, the door was open. Inside the room, a figure sat in a chair, head bowed. On the back of the photo, written in that same scrawled handwriting, "Play this only once." I put it back in the box, closed the lid, and this time, I walked away. Not everything needs to be finished. Some loops don't close, some stories echo, and that's okay. We live with the things we carry, but sometimes they live with us too. It's quiet now. That's the part I didn't expect. Not peace, not triumph, not even resolution. Just quiet, like the static's been turned down to a whisper, so low you can't tell if it's really there, or if your ears are just remembering it. There's a comfort in that silence, a hush that settles into your bones after the fear has run its course. I don't check mirrors as much anymore, not because I'm brave, because I know what I'll see now. Not a copy, not something waiting, just me. And that has to be enough. I've kept the tape, not in a shrine, or a locked box, or buried in some salt-ringed safe, just in a drawer, next to old receipts, tangled chargers, and half-dead batteries. It doesn't glow, doesn't whisper, doesn't even hum. Sometimes I forget it's there, and sometimes, only sometimes, I'll hear the drawer creak open in the night, not fully, just a little, like it's stretching, like it still remembers me. But I never check. I don't need to. We've both said what we needed to say. We both know how it ends. I still dream, but now, the dreams are different. The hallway is lit, soft amber glow, like candlelight in a snowstorm. The door at the end is shut, locked, no one knocking, no one waiting, and the hum that used to follow me, now it's a song, a lullaby I've never heard before but always seem to know. Sometimes, I hum it in my sleep, and when I wake, I don't remember the melody, just the feeling it leaves behind, like arms wrapping around you in the dark, like knowing you've been seen, and not being afraid of it anymore. Margot never called back. Maybe she's out there still, holding her own copy of the story, but maybe she found her ending too. Or maybe, like me, she became part of the recording, not trapped, not erased, just archived, tucked away in a place where strange things live. quiet lives, where fear settles into memory, and memory fades into something almost tender. There are nights I wonder if I'll see it again. The hallway, the door, the flicker at the edge of the screen. Maybe I will. Maybe one day a power surge or a thunderstorm, or a dusty old box will bring it all back, and I'll be asked to choose again, to play it, to finish it, to remember. But for now, the loop is closed, the copy is quiet, and I'm still here, still me, or close enough. And if you ever find a tape, one that feels heavy in your hands, even before you know why, one that hums softly when no one else is in the room, one with no label, or just a single word scratched into the plastic, don't play it, don't test it, just listen to this voice, the one that made it out, and let the loop stay closed. Let the story end. Let you stay you. Sleep easy, my friend. You made it. You're safe now. The hallway's far behind us. Just a flicker in the corners of memory. Nothing's lurking. No doors are open. No hum beneath the silence. Just the still rhythm of breath. The weight of your blanket. The softness of the dark. You've been through a long story. One that twisted and turned, creaked and whispered, asked questions you didn't know how to answer. And yet, here you are, whole, resting, home. Let your body grow heavy now. Let your thoughts dissolve like old footage fading to black. You don't need to hold anything anymore. Not the hallway, not the tape, not the fear. You are where you're meant to be. The walls around you are just walls. The mirror reflects only what you offer it. The night doesn't want anything from you, except maybe a little quiet. Let it have that. Breathe in, soft, slow. Breathe out. And if any part of the story lingers, let it settle. Don't chase it. Don't fight it. Let it become background noise. The same way waves sound when you drift off by the sea. Distant, repetitive, soothing. There's nothing more to do. No more loops to close. No more rooms to enter. Only rest now. Only sleep. You've made it. And whatever tomorrow brings, you'll be ready. Because tonight, you made it through.